This week on the Orange Box podcast, we talk about Xbox being removed from Walmart and Target, Expedition 33's developers making a new game, a new report about gamers not buying games, and more. All of this tonight, but first, on to the new Beautiful Bean intro. Welcome to the place where PC and console gaming talk combine. This is the Orange Box Podcast, episode 106. I am your host, the man whose next iteration of himself will have an anime art style, Nathan, also known as the Frozen Gamer 87. And joining me, as always, the man whose next iteration of himself will be a 2D Souls-like Metroidvania, Justin, better known as I am Zaracon. How you doing today? How's your week been?
It's been not bad. A couple things I experimented on, went okay, had a few hiccups, but overall, wasn't that bad. So, I guess, I'll get this one thing out of the way. We've hired some new people for my job to get new members for our team, and that's something that we've needed, and so I've been grateful for that, but, because of the fact we have new members, we've sort of had to rearrange our desking situation where everyone sits at. So I've been originally the new plan was to have me go to a different sort of like area since there weren't enough desks in our general area where our team meets at. And I was like, that's fine. I don't mind that. But then like the next day afterwards, we were told, hey, change of plans. We're rearranging everything again, so I was brought back in. I'm in the same area but at a different desk, and so it's different having to be at a different place from where I've been from the past 3 years, but you know, at least I'm still within the same vicinity of everyone else, so that's pretty cool. So I've tried 2 new recipes this past week. First one was, well, I guess technically these were 2 things. I was trying to make some fried cod and some rice pilaf, which I've never made before. And I made a mistake by trying to do too many things at once. So I was trying to cook some kale. I was trying to make the rice pilaf, and I was trying to make the fried cod simultaneously. And what ended up happening is, well, I thought I was going to time everything perfectly. Unfortunately, because I would have to go back and like stir one thing and try to get some stuff prepped up for another thing, the kale ended up being ready first, which is fine. But I was trying to also work on the rice pilaf, and ultimately, while it ended up tasting fine, I think I really overcooked the rice a bit too much because it was really kind of soft. It wasn't mushy, but it was just softer than I would have liked it to have been. So that was a bit of a mistake there. And then with the cod, the recipe, unfortunately, there weren't any measurements for like the seasoning and spices and stuff. And once again, remind me to never, take away all my pepper privileges, because it said to add in cayenne pepper, and I was trying to eyeball how much there was in the video. And I said, I guess this is enough. Maybe I should add a little more because it looks like there's not enough here. Yeah, there's definitely it wasn't scorching, but it definitely had a lot of kick to it. And so I definitely made a note to myself to restrain myself from adding too much cayenne pepper again. So that's like the second thing. The first time was the chipotle pepper, and now it's the cayenne pepper. So, I'm gonna be barred from using pepper ever again. But the other thing that I ended up making up later on was this other thing I saw, which called breakfast biscuit bombs, which are essentially biscuits with scrambled eggs, cheese. The recipe originally called for sausage, but I prefer bacon more, so I added that instead. And just sort of like rolling them all up together and just cooking them, and then adding some garlic butter on top of them. Pretty good, and you can definitely add in stuff like if you want to add some onions, you can add that in there. You can add some, if you chop them small enough, you add some mushrooms or stuff like that. So you can, it definitely turned out pretty well. I was a bit concerned because I think I should have flattened the biscuits a bit more before I tried to fold everything together. But they definitely tasted quite well, and then I just saved some for later and had them the next day. But yeah, that was definitely good. And then lastly, I've been waiting. There's a project that I've wanted to do, and I've been slowly getting everything for that together. And the final piece of the puzzle came in today, so I'm very thrilled to have that together, and that'll be part of a video I have coming up after the Expedition 33 review. So
Nice.
I'm looking forward to that. But yeah, that's everything that has happened this past week.
Good stuff. Well, let's see here. I guess first I'll mention a couple of like mixed results I had with recipes over the weekend. So, just because you were talking about food stuff. So, first I tried out this recipe for a miso garlic chicken and rice that was from the YouTube slash website for Aaron and Claire, and I've done a bunch of their recipes before. Always been really good stuff. This one, the chicken was great. The rice ended up overcooked, but that I think that was more. I'm not sure exactly what the problem was with that. So I don't think there was anything wrong with his methods. I think I just did something wrong because my initial following of his methods, the rice seemed like it was pretty much just about right, maybe a little tiny bit undercooked, but the chicken was really undercooked. And so I ended up having, granted, I was also doing a much larger recipe and doing it in a wok, so that's probably the main reason why it was more undercooked. And so I ended up sticking it in the oven to cook it the rest of the way. The rice ended up a little overdone as a result, and the chicken ended up just perfect. But basically the rice also in terms of flavor was kind of bland. It wasn't as flavorful as I was expecting, especially considering all the rest of his recipes have been fantastic. But yeah, like I said, the chicken was great. What was a real downside though was I wanted to do something that I've done a bunch of times, and that is you chopping up some bok choy and then just sprinkling some MSG on it and then sticking it in the air fryer to get it crispy. And in the past, every time I've done that, it's always been fantastic. Like the kids love it, particularly my oldest and youngest. But I was out of MSG, and I picked some of what I thought was MSG at Walmart. Turns out it was a mix of MSG and salt, and which means that it was very, very salty. So that was a complete bust, and that was just part of the bit of bok choy that I had. So I thought, okay, well, I'll try sautéing some but use chicken bouillon instead, because chicken bouillon is both salt. Has both salt and MSG in it. Unfortunately, I put too much of that, and it ended up also very salty. So I ended up just having to toss all of it. It just wasn't even worth trying to eat, which was disappointing, but, you live and you learn, I guess. That was really the only, like, unusual cooking, like, out of the ordinary cooking I did. Semi-connected to that, so, as I mentioned to you, my wife is getting her gallbladder removed tomorrow. That is Wednesday. And so, because of that, the homeschool co-op moms offered to do like a meal train for us. So between them and a couple days that are being filled in by people from our church, from Wednesday, well, for a week, starting Wednesday, we'll be getting dinners provided for us. So I won't have to worry about cooking dinner for a week, and that'll be kind of nice. But yeah, so of course, like I said, my wife is getting her gallbladder taken out tomorrow, so hopefully everything will go smoothly with that. I know it's a pretty standard routine procedure, but it never hurts to pray. So we're doing that, and unfortunately for her, she has she was told that starting midnight tonight, she's not allowed to have anything to eat or drink, including water. And originally, her surgery was supposed to be at 10 o'clock tomorrow morning, We're supposed to be there at 8, but they pushed it back to we have to be there at 11 and the surgery's at 1. So she's having to go like 14 to 16 hours without water, which is going to suck for her. I mean, of course, without food can be difficult, but that's not as hard as going without water. So, yeah, that's a bummer. But anyway, as far as remaining stuff for me, so Saturday, first of all, I was going to put in the fans that I got for my computer. Turns out I accidentally ordered 140 millimeter instead of 120 millimeter, so they were too big. So I had to send those back. Thankfully, my wife was already going out for the day, so she was able to take those and take them to UPS drop off and get them sent back while she was out. And then, so I ordered some more, and I got them today, but I haven't had a chance to put them in yet. I probably won't get to that till Saturday, would be my guess. Maybe Friday. We'll kind of just play it by ear. If it's Friday, it would be late. I mean, it would be sometime probably after dinner or something. But so with that not really working out, I decided I was trying to figure out what I was going to work on because there was a handful of different things I could do. I can't remember if I did any shopping that day, but it's not really that important. The main thing is that with all the different possible things I could do, I ultimately decided, okay, I'm going to go ahead and start getting stuff prepped for the 24-hour live stream, because previously, I mean, the last 2 that I did, one for Extra Life and one for Stack Up, I was using what is now the living room computer as my second computer to stream. So, but this time I figured since I have the laptop, I'll use the laptop to stream, so I needed to get all that set up, which required transferring some stuff over and then moving some stuff around, kind of rearranging things and so on and so forth. Fixing a couple of things that were broken from how I had done it previously. One of those things was, so I had set it up so that in order to display both the output from my desktop and from the Steam Deck when my wife and I are playing like Diablo together at the same time, I had it set up so that you have the 2 windows side by side and then a green screen behind it. So then that layer, when it goes into the stream output, there's a chroma key to make the green screen disappear. The problem is, unfortunately, that green screen also affects affects the video, the gameplay footage. So it basically pulls greens out, which has messed up the footage in the past. It just made it look weird because it's like you have the greens missing. And so I wanted to fix that, and I figured out a way to make it work without having to have that chroma key present, so now everything looks great. I still have to do testing and everything, but I think most of the stuff is set up now. One of the things I need to do is I need to look into the different chat bots that are available for basically. I'm not sure if there's a way to set it up to where it automatically every so often brings up like the different things about Stack Up and the link to all that, so that I don't have to worry about trying to do that manually all the time. But I know that there is a way to have those chat bots in there just for that purpose. So that's something that I'm planning to do. I also added timers to the breaks that I take, so that way it's very clear when I'm supposed to be back. At least for the longer breaks. The ones that are shorter, I'm not putting timers on because I'm just kind of like, usually, okay, I'm stepping away for a couple minutes or something. I have to, run to the restroom, what have you. But yeah, it's more or less set up. I scheduled the stream, posted on social media, both on YouTube and on Facebook, about those streams with links. And yeah, it's more or less ready. And tomorrow, because my wife is getting her surgery done, I'll be taking the day off from work. And I'm working from home the whole week this week, because that way if she needs anything after her surgery, I'm here for that. So but I will be working Thursday, Friday. At least I get to do it from home, though, so I can't complain too much. But yeah, I think that's pretty much it. I can't really think of anything else going on. So yeah.
Well, I'll definitely continue praying for your wife tomorrow. Just making sure, praying that God keeps everything going well on that end. Question I had regarding the bok choy. How do you? I mean, I know you said you put the MSG on there, but is there do you put some, I guess, olive oil in there or something, and then sprinkle in there, or do you just?
I just throw it in there, and I have never figured out what exactly the right temperature is for it. I kind of just, the time and temperature, I kind of just fake it. Just basically do it until it's charred is the idea, until it gets kind of dried out and charred. I think it's easier when the bok choy leaves are bigger, because then you have more to work with. The ones I had, the leaf part was smaller, and then the stem was bigger, and the stem is the part that's harder to get cooked right from that standpoint. But yeah, I don't know if I've done it all. I think this is the first time I've actually done it in this air fryer. I did it a bunch when we were in Alaska, but I don't think I've ever done it in this air fryer. So like I said, I just haven't really figured it out. I need to mess around with it and see what works. If nothing else, I'll probably do the sauteing too, because I think that it would be good that way. It's just a matter of making sure I don't over salt it. So yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I was just curious because I thought that would be interesting to try. So I might, look into that sometime.
Yep.
That'd be good.
All right. Well, this is a gaming podcast, so I guess we should talk about what you've been playing this week.
All right, so I guess first thing I'll mention is I tried out this demo for a game called Dusk Fade, and this is something that some buddies had shared in a Discord server, and this is essentially a Kingdom Hearts-like game. It's definitely really reminiscent, and I saw the trailer, I believe, was shown about last year, but the demo came out last week, I think, and so I said I'm gonna go ahead and give it a shot. And it definitely, from the moment you start this game, the aesthetics and the gameplay and just the design of the weapon, you think, yeah, this is definitely Kingdom Hearts inspired. Now, I first tried playing this on my Steam Deck, and unfortunately, that was abysmal. I started it off, and I said, something's not right here. This does not seem right. So I turned on the frame rate counter, and it was 20.
Ooh.
And I thought, okay, now I know for one thing, this is a demo, and also it's for a game that hasn't necessarily been, a verified to work on Steam, or on the Steam Deck. So I'm like, all right, that's fine. Let me go ahead and adjust some settings. So I tried tweaking a few things, and ultimately I think I dropped the resolution scaling to, I think, 75% at 800p, and then it was starting to get around 60 frames per second. I was like, all right, that's better. Unfortunately, there weren't too much as far as graphical settings go. I think I turned down the shadows to low, and that also helped. Also, I turned off VSync. That helped a whole lot.
Yeah.
I think initially that was one of the things that was killing performance there. But I was getting 60 for a bit until I got into some combat, and then the frame rate dropped to 40. And I was not really happy with what was going on, especially since it was bouncing around a lot.
Yeah.
So I said, I'm going to stop here. I'm going to download it on my desktop and play it there. And there, the frame rate was a whole lot better. Now, unfortunately, for when I was recording it, for some odd reason, the game wouldn't necessarily be full screen. I kept trying booting it up several different times. I closed it out. And so that's why you see the taskbar at the bottom. Yeah. And however, though, this revealed a very important factor as to why the performance is the way it is. The game, as you can see, has a nice U in the window, meaning it's running on Unreal Engine and possibly Unreal Engine 5, which could be the reason why. Because I later went to see what the system specs were. The minimum requirements is a 2060 It's an RTX 2060. Um, and I thought that's kind of for a game that's with these types of graphics that's kind of seems kind of demanding, all things considered. Now the frame rate on the desktop, I can get the frame rate to run at 1080p, and like again, there are no really graphical settings here, but I could get it to run at best 134 frames per second. However, the frame rate's very inconsistent to the fact that it can drop to as low as 74 frames per second. So I would say on average it's probably gonna be around 104, but it's just very inconsistent. Now, as far as the gameplay goes, I like the platforming feels a bit floaty, but not overly so. So it's definitely manageable, but it does feel a bit weird when you're trying to do some jumps here and there. Combat's pretty decent. The one thing I will say though is I'm not a fan of the lock-on mechanic system, because unfortunately it is one of those hold down left trigger to lock on rather than click it and it'll lock onto an enemy. So essentially you have to lock onto a single enemy as long as you hold down on that trigger. And I feel like for a game like this, it would be better if you did something like, say, Dark Souls, where you click the button once, it stays locked on, and if you use the right stick, you can switch between targets. So, I mean, also that's kind of like how Kingdom Hearts does it too, where you just lock onto one enemy and do it something like that. So I think that's the one thing I really don't like. I think combat's simplistic, but it's not. At least so far, it hasn't proven to be monotonous. There are some other mechanics there, like you do have a grapple hook that you can, or at least that you get near the end of the demo, that you can use to traverse to new areas. That's pretty cool. There are some different platforming stuff that you can do that's also nice. I think some of the enemies are a bit simplistic as far as their designs go, but I mean, it's still technically the demo, and I think I think they said this is only the first level that stuff is happening, so stuff's probably going to change later on. The character, I will definitely say, is very reminiscent of Sora, just because of his laid back, carefree attitude. And I mean, I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I kind of like that actually, but yeah, I mean, as a whole, I like the idea of the game, but I think that spec-wise, it's probably asking more for what than what it actually is, because I just have curiosity. Like I said, I looked and saw it was like a 2060, but you know, for another Unreal Engine 5 game, like say, let me just quickly pull up this window here. Whoops. Yeah, so like Expedition 33, which is another UE5 game, that for minimum specs, only asks for a GTX 1060 6GB model at that, which, you know, you're like, okay, well, seems like a more demanding game, but you know, maybe this is they've got a larger studio, so they can work on that more and optimize it more. But also I said, all right, well, let me look at Power World, which is, while an open world game, it shares somewhat similar graphic settings. And the minimum requirements for that game is a GTX 1050 2GB model. So I feel like there could have been a bit more optimization to make this game perform better on weaker hardware, but hopefully those rough edges get ironed out closer to release date, which is, I believe, next year sometime. So I'll wait and see what's like closer to release date. So I'm optimistic, but I am a bit disappointed right now with how things are performing at that end. But yeah. So moving on, this is something that actually I have been playing the most this past week, and just because I thought I could get rid of it or get it out of the way and finish it, and I actually did, and that was Halls of Torment. So I finally got all the achievements for this game, all 500 of them. And I thought it was going to take me 2 weeks to get through this. It only ended up taking me this past week, so I'm very grateful for that. Unfortunately, part of it was because I discovered this, I guess, very sneaky build that really just decimates enemies and completes everything. So there's this weapon called the Ring Blade, and when I first played with it around early in the game, I thought, this weapon sucks. I'm not using this thing ever again. Although one time I just happened to need to use it, and after I leveled up some and applied some abilities to it, I realized enemies aren't even able to spawn on the screen because they get destroyed as soon as they walk onto the screen. And I thought about it. How about I try applying this to some of the challenges I need to? And sure enough, that weapon alone got me 5 achievements that I needed. And so I said, okay, let me go into the final area where you have to go through the hardest challenges in the game. And I said, I'm going to try using this weapon there. That thing alone just shows how broken that weapon is. And I realized that I had slept on this weapon for so long that it's just criminal. Because this weapon alone just like carries you through the rest of the game. And I didn't even really need any special builds. It's just, I mean, granted, I equipped 2 rings, one that increases your crit rate and the other one that increases your crit damage. So with those combined with the ring blades and maxing out the damage and crit rates on that, as well as doubling the amount of rings you can spam, as well as the different types of rings you can spam, that just really made it much more easier than I would have thought it would have been. So fortunately, as a result of that, I got through that, and then I got through the last 2 challenges I needed to do, and then I beat it, and I said, it's over. I never have to play this game again, and I am thrilled on that. Now there's supposed to be an update coming later this month or next month. I don't remember which one it is. The good news is that any achievements are in-game only, so I do not have to worry about impacting my Steam achievements.
Good.
So I do not feel pressured to have to go back and play this. And I'm just happy for that. I mean, at some point I might go back and play the updates just to see what it's like, but I'm very satisfied. I mean, I've put in, I think, 145 hours or something like that into this game, and I feel like I've gotten my time's worth out of this. So that I can put that game to rest. Now, after doing that, I was really trying to decide what I wanted to play next, and there was one game that was lingering here and there, and I said, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and give this a shot, and that is Star Wars Bounty Hunter. Now, this is a game that I've seen several times in the past, back when on the GameCube days. I'd seen it in, like, GameStop ads and stuff like that. I was like, I want to get this game. Unfortunately, at the time, I didn't have a GameCube, so I couldn't get it, but so years later, I got the game, and I was like, hey, here's the remaster, I'm going to try it out. Bad news is, I mean, the good news, well, I don't know if there's really good news. So, the game is very basic. I mean, there's hardly anything in terms of settings. So I went to check the settings. There are no graphical settings at all, really. It's just like, I think maybe shadows, lighting, and VSync. That's essentially it. You can't change anything, which, I mean, it's a remaster of a 5th gen game, so I'm not expecting too much, but at the same time, I would have liked a little more. And unfortunately, the game's also capped at 60, so don't expect anything to like be too drastic on that end. So played a little bit of the game. It's not, I understand that this game comes from a time where the game where the controls came in a manual, and so you would read that, figure out what to do. And while there is a tutorial in this game to teach you how to play the game, unfortunately, it doesn't really tell you everything, because the game at one point says to equip your scanner to scan enemies and see if there's a bounty on them or not. And I said, all right, cool, great. How do I scan the enemies? Like it says equip your different gadgets. I'm thinking, you're not telling me how to equip it. So I keep jumping through, reading the manual, and I even eventually went into the control settings, just like figure out what to do. And I had to jump back for about a minute or two before I figure out what I need to do, just to get that to work. And so I wish there was a bit more, just some more information to, to help me out there. But no, I figured out the controls soon enough. It's definitely not the gameplay's not exactly what I was expecting. It's a bit janky, I think, to a degree, just because of how it works, and I'm not certain what's going on, because sometimes I feel like when I'm trying to move Django, sometimes he runs, sometimes he walks, and there's no real rhyme or reason as to figure out, do I need to press down hard enough to get him to run? Do I need to slowly ease him into running? I don't really understand. I haven't been able to figure it out exactly, so it's just weird trying to have him sprint and then not walk sometimes. Sometimes I keep forgetting to lock onto enemies, and that makes firefights a bit trickier than they need to be. But I mean, it's not bad per se. I'm not entirely certain if I'll continue playing the game or not, but it was just something to see if, hey, I might get into it. From what I've seen, it's not necessarily too long. I think it's probably about 6 hours or so long. So I mean, it's something that I could possibly go and just finish just to finish. But I'll definitely have to see. But it was nice to get into it for the first time. But something that I started this evening because I said, I want to play something right now, and I really went to play something good. And that was Castlevania Dawn of Sorrow as part of the Castlevania Dominus collection. And first off, I really wish, and I think you even mentioned this at one point when you first played the collection, Konami really needed to fix the way they presented this game, because there is no full screen setting. It's just the game starts off windowed, and there's no setting in the game in any of the menus to try to make it full screen, make it borderless, windowed, something like that. It's just default windowed, and I was trying to figure out, hey, how do I make this full screen? And it wasn't until I looked online and saw that you have to click Alt-Enter to force the game to be full screen,
Gotcha.
which I think is completely unnecessary,
Right.
and they should have just worked on that. I will say, though, that even though their settings are garbage, they do provide a lot of variety with the collection, because, I mean, as I was scrolling through stuff, I saw that you can play not only the US versions of the games, but you can also play the Japanese version, the European version, and for a couple of them, the Korean version, which is, I know that there's some differences as far as difficulty between the English and Japanese version. I'm not sure what the differences between the European versions are, or the Korean version for that matter. So I think it's interesting that they give you that variety, especially for people. I think it helps if you're speedrunning, because there are certain versions people prefer to use, for that matter. But yeah, so I played Dawn of Sorrow because that, I believe, is actually the first Castlevania I ever did play. And I played that multiple times on the DS back in the day, and I said, you know what? I know this one's good. I want to go back and play this. So I spent a good couple hours playing this. It took me several tries to figure out how to actually get the stylus stuff to work, because it said use the right stick to move. I'm trying to move my right stick and perform the glyphs on the screen, but unfortunately it just wasn't working for me until I realized, hey, there are actually button prompts you can press instead. And I realized, you know what, I should be doing that instead. So I did that, and that worked a whole lot better than trying to just use the right stick. Now, I mean, granted, if I changed the sensitivity, maybe that would work better, but just right now, it's just garbage. But I mean, as far as there's one section after you beat a boss where you use it to break blocks, and that's a whole lot easier to maneuver, because you don't need to be fast enough as far as drawing stuff, so it's you can take your time with that. But yeah, I think it's it's a DS game, so it should perform well. One thing I will notice is that, or at least I think they retranslated the game, because some of the text is different than what I remember in the DS version, and also, unfortunately, they did not take enough time to proofread the text as well, because there have been several grammatical errors that I noticed. And within the very first scene, there's a character who says, I went to see You're Dead. And I thought, that should be either I went to see you dead or I went to see your death. And then later on, there was another grammatical error where someone said, well, I can't remember what the exact what it was exactly, but I read and thought that's just wrong. That's completely wrong. Did no one read this? And so I mean, I don't know if they were trying to be more faithful or not, but like I don't know what the original Japanese text was, so I can't really say if something's more faithful or not. But I guess because of bias from playing the game before, it's just certain terms or words that were used before. I thought, I don't know why they changed the phrasing here to what it is now. But yeah, that is what it is. But I mean, they could have at least just ironed out those typos here and there and whatnot. But all in all, I mean, the game still is fun to play, and I definitely enjoy this game on the DS. And later on, of course, I will want to play Portrait of Ruin and Order of Ecclesia. Now, one thing I actually will say is weird is the way they order the games in the menu, because you have Order first, then Portrait, then Dawn, which is weird because as far as releases go, Dawn should have been first. So I have no idea why it's at the bottom, unless they were trying to. Yeah, actually, I have no idea why they did that at all. But yeah, so like I said, it's a good game. I think I might stick with this, or at least I'll stick with it on my Steam Deck, play around with it on there. Now, actually, that's one thing I will say is I didn't try using the stylus on my Steam Deck. So I might try seeing if I could try using the touchpad to use as a stylus and see if that works better than the right stick. But yeah, that's it for that game, and that is all that I have.
All right. Well, first of all, I do want to say I haven't played this one yet. The DS collection, the Dominus collection. I have it, but I haven't played it yet. I played the GBA collection entirely, but this one's been on my list for a while. It's actually been installed on my Steam Deck for a while. I just haven't gotten to it yet. But that may change sometime in the not too distant future. We'll see what happens, because of course, seeing this, it's like, oh man, it looks so much fun. But yeah, either way, I'm glad that at least one of us is playing it. And then yeah, hopefully I'll have a good stopping point to where on other games to where I'm ready to jump into this kind of thing, because I figure probably once I start the collection, I'll want to play all the games, at least all of the 3 games, maybe not any of the optional arcade games or whatever that are just completely different, but the DS ones I definitely want to play. So let's see here, what was I gonna say? With Dusk Fade, one of the things I was wondering about, if I can remember what it was. So I know that some games, because I've had this happen with Returnal. Some games, for some reason, the taskbar won't disappear. And I'm wondering if maybe maybe you just have to auto hide the taskbar. I can't remember if you can do that in Linux. I mean, I would think you can, but
Yeah, I can definitely do that, and that's something I hadn't thought about, but I'll definitely make a note to look into that.
yeah. Because yeah, I know with Returnal it does that too. I have to make it auto hide the taskbar anytime I play Returnal, because otherwise it's just there all the time and it's very annoying. So yeah.
Thank you.
All right. Well, I didn't play a lot of games this week, but I did play a lot of one game and a decent amount of another and a little bit of another. So, first of all, I'll just mention I did play a little bit more Expedition 33, and the I basically just got a little bit past when you get Mael, and it's too easy right now. Even on expert difficulty on New Game Plus, my builds are so broken that I'm just like, the only time the enemy gets a turn is if I skip my turn. Otherwise, it's like, it just ends. It's one turn and they're gone. Sometimes one character goes and then it's over. So yeah, like I fought the first Borgion thing that you can fight in this footage, and he didn't get a chance to attack. I surprisingly didn't completely decimate him with just one character, but that's mostly because of the fact that Mael was the third character to get a turn. And so, like, I didn't even go for the strongest attacks. Like, I didn't start off with Stendhal or anything. I just, went for one of, like, some of her other attacks. And it just got to a point where, okay, I guess, I knew that it was going to die regardless of what I used. So I just decided to go ahead and use Stendhal to finish it off. But yeah, it didn't even get a chance to attack once, and so far that's been my experience with every fight I've gotten into, except for like one where I intentionally skipped my turn, right? Skipped my character's turn so that the enemy could have a chance to try and hit me, so that I could try to parry or whatever. And I think that whatever they did, it wasn't even like an attack against me to where I had the opportunity to try parrying. And so it's just been, okay, this is a little too easy. I'm not sure I'm going to be playing this a whole lot, but I don't know. I may boot it up now and again just to slowly kind of progress through New Game Plus. Because I'm sure there has to be a challenge somewhere in there. And of course, with the news we got of them adding in free content after I've already started New Game Plus, of course. That's really the only way that I can experience the new content. So that's kind of like the only motivator for me to play any further. But regardless of any of that, I have not played much of it. I played probably like a couple hours total, if that. Yeah, I don't remember exactly how much I played, but it wasn't much. But something that was a very nice surprise is I got an email that there was a playtest for Valor Mortis. And so I got my opportunity to check out the game. And the footage that's playing here, there's footage from all three places I have available to play it. The Steam Deck, my laptop, and my desktop. Now, I will say already, the Steam Deck, the visuals and performance were so atrocious that I did not play very long. I played about 10 minutes, if that. I don't even think it was that long. It's probably more like 5 minutes. But I turned all the settings down to the lowest possible settings, had FSR on ultra performance, and I was getting like a maximum of 21 frames per second. It was bad. It was so bad. It was unplayable. So right after I uninstalled it. But I did get a chance to play it a good amount, both on my desktop and on my laptop. But I will say that the demo did not have cloud saves, so I had to restart the game on each platform when I wanted to play it. As I told you initially when I was playing this on my desktop, with all the settings maxed out, and I thought I had ray tracing turned on. Apparently I didn't, but with all the settings maxed out, I thought I had ray tracing turned on. I thought I had frame generation turned off, and I was getting like over 100 frames per second, sometimes up into like the 180s. It was like, how is this even possible? This has to be witchcraft, because I made sure from the AMD software that I didn't have frame generation turned on, and I didn't have FSR turned on. I was just using like FXAA for anti-aliasing, and so I thought, oh, then there's no frame generation turned on. So I couldn't understand what was going on with that. And then I finally realized frame generation was turned on. And I mean, it didn't like it felt a little bit off, and of course the fact that it was so high on the frame rate, I was very suspicious because it didn't make any sense for it to be that. But then also, like I had the monitor up in the top showing the frame rate and CPU and GPU usage, and the frame rate it said FSR this much frame rate, FPS this much, and so it's like there's got to be frame generation turned on. But initially, I wasn't figuring out why. I mean, what was going on with that? So I did figure out that frame generation was turned on. When I turned it back off, then I was getting a much more realistic frame rate of like 80 to, I think, maxed out around 120, but typically it was more around the 80 range. It might have dropped a little lower than that. I can't remember honestly. Um, but I mean, visually, it is a gorgeous game. It is a really good looking game outside of the Steam Deck. And um, I mean, it controls well. Like, it feels like a Souls-like game, but it also feels like it's made by the people who made Ghost Runner. I mean, you're not moving fast like you do in Ghost Runner or anything, but um, it just seems like it's a very well-designed game. And I, what I played of it, like, it seems parrying is pretty much essential to be able to succeed. And um, I kind of figured out the parry timing for certain attacks that enemies do, but then like their stab attacks, I was struggling with it a bit more. And I guess I should also say parrying is essential with the mini bosses and presumably the actual boss, which I didn't get to the actual boss. Um, but at least with the mini bosses, it absolutely is essential because otherwise, unless you manage to dodge their attacks or block them just right, which, blocking only prevents so much damage, you're going to die pretty quickly. And I was able to get controls mapped well enough to where like I felt pretty comfortable with them. Starting to get parry timing down and that sort of thing. And I was getting close to the end of, I guess relatively close to the end of the playable area. And then I started having a glitch where I couldn't heal. I would press the heal button and it wouldn't do anything. And before anyone assumes, oh, you must just not have had any healing items left. It's like, no, that wasn't the problem. I went to the, I think it's the lantern is what they have for their bonfire equivalent. I went there and I got, all my healing flask things restored. And I checked it and it's just, nope, it's not working. It's not working. And then I also had the issue of the sprint button not working properly. Like, it would drain my stamina when I was holding down the sprint button, but it wouldn't actually let me sprint. And so it's just, okay, one problem after another. This is not good. And I mean, while the Ghost Runner games don't have the ability to heal, and so theoretically, if I worked at it long enough, I could potentially get through stuff without having to without having to, I mean, without getting hit, because in Ghost Runner, once you get hit, you die. The problem is, of course, that in this, because of the fact that it has the Souls equivalent, which I don't remember what they're called in this game, it was definitely something where I just knew there was pretty much no chance I was going to be able to make it through with that being an issue. So I just, unfortunately, I couldn't finish it. I tried restarting the computer, and it seemed like, oh, okay, it's working again. And then, in the middle of a fight, I'd be trying to heal, and nope, it's not working. So it just didn't work out real well. The stuff I got available was, I mean, you start off with the saber, and then a little bit in, you can get a gun, a pistol, and then a little bit later, you get a fire attack that's basically kind of like, I'm trying to think of what to compare it to, but it's basically just like you're like you have a flamethrower in your hand, more or less, but it's pretty short range. There's definitely some pyromancies in Dark Souls that are similar to that. I can't quite remember what they are, but yeah, I mean, what I got to play, I really, really liked. It was just unfortunately that glitch happened that made it impossible for me to heal, and unfortunately the playtest was just over the weekend because it ended I think Monday morning, and so I never got to finish it. And of course, with that glitch coming up, there wasn't really any way for me to uh, actually finish it. So I did not get to finish. What I played, I really liked. It seemed to run pretty well. I guess I didn't mention the performance on my laptop. It was pretty similar, although I did use DLSS there because, um, actually, I think it was more like 60 to 80 on my laptop was pretty standard. But I did use DLSS, um, and I definitely, well, I shouldn't say if, when I eventually play the full version of the game, I will definitely mess around with settings and probably do some tweaking to get optimal performance. But as an overall, I was really satisfied with how it looked and ran. And um, there's definitely room for some other stuff. To make it even better. And like I will say, the frame generation actually wasn't bad. Like, frame generation is one of those things that when you're at the higher frame rates, it doesn't feel nearly as bad as it does when you're at the low frame rates. If you do it at the low frame rates, it just adds a ton of input lag. And the input lag when you do it on the high frame rates is just barely there. But it's still enough to where I would rather just take all real frames and not have any input lag whatsoever, especially for a game like this where it's already a hard game, and any split second of input lag could be the difference between living and dying. So I'd really rather just keep it that way. But yeah, I'm not really sure what else to say about it. I want to play more. This is a pre-alpha, so of course it's just, a very small slice of the game of the what the final game is going to be, obviously. And um that major bug that I came across, it didn't seem like anybody else had that come up, but I know that it was a real bug because it happened both on my laptop and my desktop. So it was just, unfortunately, I couldn't finish it. And they did, of course, allow you to provide feedback, and I let them know about that bug, not really being sure what exactly caused it. Although I think now, from the last time I played, that it may be an issue of if you change between mouse and keyboard and controller, that bug can happen, or vice versa. It seemed like that might have been what made it have issues, but ultimately I don't know, and obviously I can't test it until either the next time they do a demo or when the full game comes out. I'll definitely check out whatever demos they do in the future, because I'm sure there will be additional ones. I don't know if they'll do anything else for people who participated in the first playtest, or if it'll be like more of an open thing, or how they're going to work that out. But either way, I definitely want to check it out the next time I have the option. So but the game I have played without question the most this week is a little game that happened to get a remake. It was a game that originally released in 2017. I played it on the Switch and never fully finished it, because as much as I enjoyed it, it was just, there's a couple things that were just like, not great about it. But they just released a remake, and if you had already purchased if you had the original game, you could get the game for 30% off. So it's like, okay, instead of spending the $30 that it was, which is completely reasonable price, it was only $18.98 or something like that. So great price as far as I was concerned for a game I was very interested in, especially because I heard that it basically fixed all the problems from the original game. That is Yuga Replayly. And so I have played a lot of this over the past, well, since Friday. Friday, was it? I think it was either Thursday or Friday that it came out. I can't remember which. Um, but I am now I am currently in the fifth world. Like I just started the fifth world. 100% at all the previous worlds. Um, this game is it's so much better than the original version. I mean, like I enjoyed a lot of things about the original version, but as a whole, it still just had some issues, especially with controls and that sort of thing. And I can't remember like every single problem I had with it, but it was enough to where I never finished the game. And I know part of it was that like I had gotten lost, was unable to find some of the remaining collectibles in like the last world. And then there was a couple of the mine cart challenges that I just really hated because they were just horribly designed. And so I just never quite got through those. And so it's like I was missing, quite a few pages. Whereas this time, apart from sometimes just finding the challenges or finding the pages, that sort of thing, I have never found myself coming across a challenge that I felt like was ridiculous. Like all of them felt doable, and it's very clear this game learned a lot from Super Mario Odyssey in terms of just its design overall, and it just vastly improved over the original version. Now, in terms of like how it looks and performs, looks great. It is a beautiful game. Like it really is genuinely a gorgeous game. I liked the style of the original one, but this one is way better. The performance, so desktop, I was getting I don't have the exact numbers in front of me, but it was somewhere between I mean, it could go as high as my max refresh rate, 240. And I think it was typically anywhere between 130 and 180 was pretty average for the frame rate. With all the settings maxed out, of course. Of course, there's not much of any settings. Like, it's very, very, very basic in terms of settings. It's like, you can set there's just like a baseline graphics setting. You can turn on HDR or off. You can turn VSync on or off. I think that's it. It's like almost no visual settings. Oh yeah, and you can change the resolution. But there's virtually no settings to it. But what settings there were, I was getting basically max settings. I was running at max settings and getting that frame rate. However, there was some really bad stuttering. Like sometimes it would have massive frame drops, and it wasn't like, it just fluctuates on the frame rate, but it's still completely playable. It was like, no, there were times where the frame rate would just stutter so badly that it felt horrible. I ultimately figured out, after doing a couple of different things, that, well, for one, this is an issue across the board. It's an issue on all platforms. But turning off VSync basically fixed the stuttering. And so since I turned off VSync, I have been having a much, much better experience. I don't think I've really had any stuttering since I turned off VSync, which is odd because usually VSync doesn't cause stutters, it just prevents tearing. But in this case, not only has it basically, as far as I can tell, I can't recall a single time the game has stuttered. It does have a couple of frame drops, but I'll get to that. I can't recall any stuttering since I turned off VSync. And I haven't had any screen tearing at all. At least not that I can recall. And I'm pretty sensitive to screen tearing. But I don't think I've had a single screen tear whatsoever. So it's been very good. Now the frame drop aspect. So I would say on desktop it's usually not noticeable. At least once I turned off VSync, it was no longer noticeable if there was frame drops. And even the frame drops, like it would drop in from the hundreds down into the 80s. which might seem like, oh, that's pretty significant, but I might even actually be thinking more of before I turned off VSync, or before I turned off VSync, that it was doing that. And since then, I haven't really kept an eye on the frame rate from that standpoint. But I have played it as well on my Steam Deck, and Steam Deck, like, it actually has a Steam Deck visual preset. And initially it seemed like, okay, I can get 60 frames per second on this. It seems like it was perfectly fine. Then it was having some frame drops. So I turned it down to low. It was still having some frame drops. Wasn't maintaining 60. Turned it down to very low, which still looked great, but it wasn't quite maintaining 60. It was doing better, but it still wasn't great. And so I ultimately just settled on going with a 45 FPS cap, and it basically it maintains that pretty well. There are some occasional drops, but with VSync turned off, it does a lot better, just as it does on the desktop. And like, it hasn't been anything to where it's negatively affected my experience that much. Basically, the only time the frame rate really like consistently drops is like when you're near the entrance. When you first get into a world, when you step out of the book, like the frame rate will drop down to 30, and then it will stay there for a few seconds, and then once you like step out of the light of the book, then the frame rate goes back up to 45, and then it basically stays that way most of the time. Beyond that, and like I said, it's to the point where I played probably about half of the time on Steam Deck, because I played mostly on my desktop over the weekend, and then between particularly Saturday or Monday and today, I have been playing only on the Steam Deck, and I haven't had any issues. I mean, I've been having a great time with it. And yeah, I can't remember if I still have it on the Steam Deck visual setting or not. I probably should check that, because it's very possible that I could just keep it at 45 and then have it on the Steam Deck, which was kind of like, it wasn't ultra, but it was like I don't know exactly what visual setting would be considered, because there's not a whole lot of visual settings. It's like you have very low, Steam Deck, and ultra, I think. It might even only be like 3 settings, but either way, I've been pretty happy with performance and visuals, and I've been having a really, really good time with this game. And I'm at the point where I would say it's very likely that I'll get all the achievements, just because I've already gotten... Let me check here. Probably around 35 out of 40 something achievements. Pause the game and no, it was already paused. Let's see here. I am at 34 out of 45 achievements, and I have since I have 23 hours, I don't think that's right. It's probably closer to 15, 16 hours, but sometimes the time estimate it gives is not quite accurate. So, regardless, I've been having a blast with it. But yeah, that's everything.
Nice. Okay. So since we're on Yuka Replay, so how I guess just to gauge how far you're in the game, you said you're in the 5th area. How many areas overall are there?
I think there's just 5 worlds. I think there's 5 worlds that you go to separate from the main area. I believe there might be a 6th one, but I'm pretty sure there's only 5.
Okay. And you said earlier about the gameplay feeling, I think you said it felt a little different and improved. I know you said there were some designs, like with the mine carts, that were fixed. Were there any other aspects that were adjusted or changed that made it feel a whole lot better?
Yeah, I mean, some of it is a little hard to recall of the exact changes, but it's just lots of little quality of life things. And one of the things that's probably the best is that you get all of the main moves unlocked at the very beginning of the game instead of it being like you have to purchase them at certain points. And you can buy like additional basically like permanent upgrades, like health upgrades, and um, then there's like different tonics you can purchase, which are kind of like badges, where they give you special abilities. Like there's one that you get that makes so that you can automatically attract one of the feather items, a feather currency collectible thing, uh, which of course, well, I don't know if that tonic existed in the original game. I never got it if it did, um, but I'm trying to think of what else. Like the there's no longer a double jump. It's just one higher jump. Um, I don't know, the combat feels better, the movement feels better. Oh, you no longer drain stamina when you roll, which is really nice because that makes a big difference for getting around. Um Gosh, honestly I couldn't tell you all the changes. I did that video I sent you last week that kind of explained everything about it. It did a really good job explaining all the major things that they did differently, and just yeah, it just feels a lot better. Like, because I really liked the idea of ukulele, and there were things I really enjoyed about it, but there were just enough issues I had with the game to where I never quite finished it. And of course, not being able to get all of the collectibles because some of the challenges were just really obnoxious and the controls were just kind of wonky in spots. Um, yeah, and the lighting is better, and just I don't know. There's so many things that make this game better from its original version.
And refresh my memory. Did you play? I mean, or at least when you got the N64 controller, I can't remember if you mentioned this or not. Did you end up playing Banjo Kazooie on the Nintendo Switch Online for N64 games?
I played a decent chunk of it before I got the N64 controller, but I never quite finished it, and
Okay.
that's one of those that I probably will go back to one of these days, maybe before my Switch Online uh, membership expires next year. But honestly, I haven't really decided. I may just end up, emulating it on PC because I own the game. I mean, I bought the game more than once, so yeah.
Okay. Because I was just out of curiosity. I was to ask if how you felt, if how you felt about this game compared with Banjo Kazooie. Felt that the remake feels so good that it feels better than the original game, or if you feel like the original game is better than Banjo, because I mean ukulele, or I guess ukulele, uku, replay.
Yeah.
But-
I mean, I played a good amount of Banjo Kazooie, and I would say in terms of I think the overall design, I think Yooka-Laylee is pretty close to on par with Banjo Kazooie. Um, but like obviously it controls a lot better because it's much newer, has a lot more, quality of life things that weren't present in Banjo Kazooie. But Banjo Kazooie is still a classic, and I mean it still plays well despite the N64 jank that's present. But I mean, Yooka-Laylee is just like it's very clear that it was designed by people who were involved with Banjo Kazooie, and that they also learned their lessons from the mistakes they made with the original ukulele.
Okay. And then going back to Valor Mortis. So, I the first question I wanted to ask you was, how does the game, or how's the enemy placement feel in this game, considering the fact that it is a Souls-like game, but in
Mhm.
first-person perspective. How does that feel since you can't see all around you since you're in
Mhm.
first-person perspective? How does that feel with trying to, you know, engage with enemies and also make sure you don't get sideswiped or
Right.
get jumped from behind? How does it feel playing the game that in that perspective?
I mean, it's felt fine. I haven't really had any major issues with it, and it does give you it does have like indicators. When an enemy's nearby you, getting ready to attack, that sort of thing. Like a little red mark off to the side or whatever. Um, so at least they have that, to make it a little bit easier to know know if you're about to get ganked. Um, but I mean, with how little I got to play overall, I mean, there was a couple spots where there's definitely a lot more enemies as you get further along, but that's to be expected.
And you mentioned the pistol earlier. Does that act just as a, I guess, sort of standard weapon, or
Yeah.
is it act like an accessory weapon, or is it sort of something
So
sort of
so
like
it is a
Bloodborne where it can counter?
it's not for countering. You can A lot of enemies will have weak points that you can damage, and if you fire at that weak point, then it takes off a large chunk of their health. Um, and obviously, like when you get to the boss, for example, of this area, which I didn't make it that far, but like I watched Fightin' Cowboy go through it with with the previous playtest, and that one it's just like, yeah, it does a chunk of the health, or it does a chunk of the stun bar, one of the two.
Okay. And then I guess to sum everything up, of course this was just the early stages of the game, but from what you've played so far, do you think this is going to be a day one for you?
Oh yeah, without question. I mean, well, I guess I should say, if I am alive and there's not a good reason for me not to get it, like somehow I reach some major financial hardship and there's no way that I can possibly afford it, without, I mean, like I lose everything I own or something, So if something like that would happen, then no, it wouldn't be a day one purchase for me. But, you know, if everything is basically normal, then yes, it'll be day one. It'll be probably through Green Man Gaming. It'll probably be the deluxe edition because, um, of course, I mean, this developer, made the Ghost Runner games, which were fantastic, of course, and um, everything I played of this so far feels like it's up to that same level of quality. Plus, it's a Souls like, so
All right, good stuff.
yeah, I mean, I think that this developer may have replaced Sucker Punch for me as my favorite developer, mostly because of the abomination of the story that is Ghosts of Yote's story. That took me from, I might pick this up on PC down the line, to I'm not buying it. So, yeah, which is a shame, but Sucker Punch still had some great games in the past, just not anymore. I mean, this is kind of a side tangent, but it sucks so bad when you have a game that otherwise is very well designed, even if it's very samey, but because they have to bring in the message, they have to bring in their special story, their story that they want to tell. It's because of that the game ends up being ruined. A game that otherwise would be just fine. But yeah. And I mean, it seems like basically they brought the more or less the personal politics of the mocap actress for the game. In fact, probably what it was is that they hired her specifically because of her personal politics to play that role, instead of just having someone who's good at the role and everything else. Because you look at, I mean, like the actor who plays Jin. I mean, he's got some. I mean, he certainly has politics I wouldn't agree with, but his politics do not come across at all in the game. It is, I mean, he does an excellent job in that role. And of course, the story was extremely well written and everything, but they always have to take the sequel and ruin it, ruin the story, inject their stuff because the property's popular. And it's like, Insomniac did that with Spider-Man. Miles Morales was borderline on the story. I mean, I know you don't like Miles Morales. I liked the game overall. I thought overall the story was good. There were elements I didn't care for, but for the most part, I really liked it. But Spider-Man 2, they just completely... The story was an abomination. And it's because of that I never bought it, and I won't buy it. And I'm not going to buy Ghosts of Yotei because of what they did with the story. They could have knocked it out of the park, but nope, it's just... Ugh. Okay, anyway, let's move on. Let's go into the news, unless you have anything else you want to say before we do that.
No, I'm good to move on.
All right. So, this one's more of a small thing, but I just want to mention it because it is helpful to note, at least. So, last week we talked about the price increases for Game Pass. And I do want to mention first and foremost that I said that it was 50%, a 50% increase across the board. It's actually not 50% on PC. It's like a 38% increase. It's still an increase, but the PC version of Game Pass also doesn't come with anything extra. It's exactly the same thing. They're not changing anything with it. So note that first. Something that is, I'm not going to say it's positive, but it's less negative, I guess you could say. In some countries, particularly countries like Poland, Germany, Indonesia, Austria, India, and Ireland, Microsoft has set it up to where if the people who are already subscribed to Game Pass in those areas maintain their subscription rather than canceling it and resubbing, or just canceling it, if they maintain their subscription rather than canceling and then later resubbing or resubbing right after, whatever they happen to do, they actually get to maintain the lower rate. So basically they have the old rate grandfathered in. But if they cancel it when they resub, they'll get it at the higher rate. And that's just the way it's unfortunately going to work. But it's still something good to note. Just for anybody who has been subscribed in one of those countries, you can save yourself some money by just sticking with your existing subscription, and then you don't have to worry about the price being increased. My guess is that it will probably still go up later, but at least for now, it's not increasing if you remain subbed. So, any thoughts on that?
I was very curious as to why these particular countries maintain the original price. I'm not certain. I mean, for Germany, Austria, and Ireland, I feel like at least Germany and Austria, I'm certain are part of the EU. So I was curious as to why other countries within the EU aren't, in the same boat as far as being able to maintain their prices. So I'm really curious as to why. And I mean, in addition to like other countries like Indonesia, I think Poland's also part of the EU. So I'm really just I want to know why certain countries have that same price and while the majority just don't. I wonder if like later on they'll go ahead and say, hey, if you're part of the, and I feel like if they want to maintain the subscribers that haven't drop ship because of the fact they're gonna charge more, I feel like they should send out emails globally and say, hey, we're going to allow you to maintain your current pricing if you stay with us and don't cancel. Which, I mean, I feel like partly might be why they sent out the emails in the first place, is because of the fact that they saw, hey, we're bleeding subscribers. I mean, Granted, it could possibly be the fact that these countries had such a significant drop that they said, all right, it's going to be impacting us heavily if we don't do something drastic. So maybe that could be the reason why, but it just seems weird that certain countries have are receiving these emails and others aren't. I mean, I guess it's like you said, it's not necessarily positive, but it's a less negative thing where they are offering this. I feel like people who have been long-time subscribers to Game Pass should get this. But like you said, at some point it is going to go up for them. It's just, a matter of when, not if.
Mhm.
But yeah, I mean, it's if you are a subscriber and you don't want to pay more, then you should probably stick with it. But yeah, it's just a bad situation though, as we mentioned before, and I won't really get too much into that. But yeah, that is definitely a noteworthy thing.
Yeah. I mean, ultimately, like, this is something that a lot of companies do. They'll grandfather in old rates initially, but I don't expect that it's going to be something that maintain long term. I think that it's basically going to be like, oh, we'll do this for now, but later on down the line, they're going to increase the price. They'll just give more advance notice so that people can be prepared for it. Because I believe that at least some of those countries, and I'm not really sure how being in the EU impacts things versus not, but I think that they just have certain laws to where these service providers are required to give more advance notice than what they were giving. So I think that's ultimately what it comes down to. I'm not going to praise Microsoft for this because I don't think that this is I mean, it's more or less they're just following the laws that they have to follow in those particular areas. If they did it in the US, I still probably wouldn't praise them for it. Unless they actually, made the smart decision and just made a separate tier that has the additional stuff if people want it instead of forcing it on everyone. But yeah, it should never have happened in the first place. At least not without just making it an optional tier. So anyway, that's all I got on that story. Really just wanted to kind of cover it briefly. All right, you want to talk about this stuff going on with Expedition 33?
Sure thing. So, Expedition 33 has had a lot of success, and it recently passed the 5 million sales number. And, to celebrate, Sandfall Interactive put out an announcement saying that as a result for that, just to celebrate, there will be an update, a free update coming in the future. In fact, here is a statement that, let me make sure I say. Now, unfortunately, I'm horrible with French, so I'm going to butcher the name. Guillaume Broche, he said, regarding this update, it's not exactly a full-blown downloadable content expansion thing, but it's what we call a thank you update. We have received so much love from our community and players. We just want to thank you for joining us. And it's going to be available for all platforms. And it doesn't have a release date yet, but it is going to have a new playable environment and offer new enemy encounters and surprises to discover. Additionally, new late-stage boss battles, new costumes, and even more surprises that fans can look forward to. Additionally, there was a discussion about a sequel game as well. And while there aren't too many details about it yet, and there's not a whole lot to say, the statement that Broche also said was, we don't want to be constrained by story, art style, or gameplay and whatever we want to make next, so nothing to say. We just want to feel authentic and made with love. And he also mentioned that the game's pairing feature and ability to remain active during an enemy's turn was inspired by Devil May Cry and Mario and Luigi RPG games, which, was a big inspiration. I definitely agree with, the Mario and Luigi games, since the sort of quick time buttons were an aspect of those games. But yeah, that's essentially everything that we know so far about the updates and the new game. But before I get into my thoughts on this, what are yours, sir?
All right. Well, first of all, I'm a little bit annoyed that they are releasing this uh, new content when I don't have my old save before I start a new game plus. So the only way that I can access the new content is to play through the game until I can access that new content, which my guess would be not until Act 3. So while, yes, I could probably speed through the entire game very quickly because of the fact that most of my characters are max level, and those that aren't are, still in the 90s. Um, I just, yeah, I mean, like, I'm not actually mad at them. I'm just a little annoyed because I don't have an easy way to just experience the content. Because if I could just go in it and go do it, I would. I absolutely would. But I'm gonna have to, if I want to experience the additional content, I'm gonna have to play further into New Game Plus. And yeah, so we'll see what happens with that. Um, that's really all I can do is just wait and see. But the one thing I'm still wondering about is when they're going to release the Manor theme for those of us who bought the soundtrack, or make it available to purchase. I know that they're doing it on like the vinyl version of the soundtrack, but I don't want to buy the vinyl version, and I'd rather just I'd pay $5 for that one song. I'd rather not spend that much on the song, and I have a feeling they probably wouldn't charge that much. And considering they gave us all those other tracks for free, I can't think of any reason why they wouldn't just give us the one song for free. But I want it. And either way, I think it's great that they're putting out this free content whenever they do that. And as far as their new game, not necessarily following the same art style or gameplay of Expedition 33, that's fine. I'm basically going to support them regardless because Expedition 33 was such a masterpiece, and I trust them to put out something great again, regardless of what it happens to be. I look forward to it. I imagine it probably wouldn't be before like 2028 that we would see a new game from them. But that's fine. If I'm still alive, I'll plan on playing it. That's all I got.
I don't know if you would be interested in getting this or not. They are, in addition to the vinyl, they do have a box CD set that is coming alongside that. Now let me see actually I can't remember what the price is, but let me see what my receipt says.
I mean, like I'm mixed on that because on the one hand I would like to, but I don't really want to buy it again because the main reason I buy CDs is so that I can have the WAV format, but the digital soundtrack already came with the WAV format. So it's like, I mean, I already have the uncompressed tracks. That's really the only reason that I buy CDs, is that I can have the uncompressed tracks ripped from the CD so that I can put them on my phone to listen to. So I don't know. And I wouldn't buy the whole soundtrack for one song. It's not worth it to me.
Fair enough. Now regarding the DLC, I feel like this announcement came just in time because I was going to replay the game in New Game Plus, to play it in New Game Plus, but also to get footage for my review. But then I stopped and thought about it, and I realized I'm not certain if playing a New Game Plus would spoil some stuff for people who haven't played the game before. Yeah. So I thought about it, and I said, I'll just replay the game from New Game and record footage that way. And it turned out that was sort of a good idea since they put out this announcement. So I think I'm just going to hold off New Game Plus and just keep my save file as it is right now and wait for the update and just have a new file as the new game. Although I might decide to see if I can have an offline save file for New Game Plus and just use that and then switch back to the online if I want to play the DLC. But I'll see what I do there. I think it's definitely great. I mean, I think it's really cool that this is coming. It sounds like there's like a lot of new stuff here. You got new environments, new enemies and stuff like that, and new costumes. And again, it's all free.
Yeah.
AAA, companies. I know you're kind of poor and you're trying to,
Hmm.
just get your few coins together to give us content, but I know you can't afford it, but maybe you could give us a crumb here and there for free. I don't know. This quintuple A developer Sandfall, they can afford this type of thing, but I know, EA and all of you, I know it's hard for you to afford this, but maybe you could give us something free every now and then, You're not nickel and dime us. I don't know. But yeah, this is just a common Sandfall W
Hmm.
that we see here. I am definitely though very curious to seeing what they do with the next game, because we of course talked about this last week, as far as like primarily with the ending and about the fact that there was, before we even had this announcement with more details about the sequel they're going to be making in the future, and as far as them saying we're not going to be constrained by any type of style or even gameplay, is just interesting because that means they could technically do anything.
Hmm.
And I mean, would they go into a more action-based game? Would they do something different? I mean, it's just interesting to think, because it's funny that they even mentioned Devil May Cry, because I think at least with the first Devil May Cry game, uh, I can't remember if this was what inspired it or something like that, but I think it's Devil May Cry. It was originally going to play kind of more like the PS1 Resident Evil games, but then so much stuff changed around that they eventually changed it into what it ended up being. So I don't know if it's gonna be something like that where the gameplay could, from what they had in mind, could change, and they go from it being as it was a turn-based game to maybe being more action-oriented.
Hmm.
It's interesting to think. Now, I mean, would I like a turn-based game? Yeah, I think how they handled it was phenomenal. But at the same time, just because it's this one game doesn't mean it has to be set in stone. They still definitely have a lot of, there's definitely more room to maneuver and expand upon things. So if they want to try something different, that's great. As far as art style, I really was in love with what they did with this game. I think it's just beautiful the way they designed the characters, the setting, everything was just great. So, but I mean, if they're going to change something, because I mean, for one thing, I'm trying to really say stuff without spoiling stuff. In this world of ours, if there is another world, you know, for one reason or another, that one could have a different style or theme. So, that opens up possibilities in that aspect as
Yeah.
well, which could also impact the gameplay as well. If there are certain things in that world, um, that based on the theme, they could change with things. So I mean, there's definitely a whole lot of that they could do there in that aspect. Um, I still would be interested in knowing. I guess one of the primary things I'd be interested in knowing about is the story, which of course we discussed last week. But I'm just curious about knowing like what they would do next in a clear obscure game.
Yeah.
But we would definitely have to see what that is. But I mean, overall though, I'm definitely looking forward to it. You know, if like you, if I'm still alive and it is still financially feasible, I will get the next game. I'm very glad that I gave them the support I did. I bought the game on Steam, bought the game on GOG. I've got the soundtrack pre-ordered. So I'm definitely glad that they've had the success that they did, because it's been a very refreshing breath of air in
Hmm.
what has been. I mean, don't get me wrong, there have definitely been some great games that have come out, but this just felt like the biggest breath of fresh air to me, and so I've really just enjoyed what they've done here, and I just look forward to supporting them in the future.
Yep, for sure. All right. Well, moving on into the next story. So there was a post that went up on gaming Reddit page claiming that from someone saying that they worked for Target and that their store was no longer selling Xbox games. And he took a picture of of what it is what's supposedly going on with this, and showed it basically virtually empty shelves. Most of the games and game cards were gone. It didn't look like anything had been restocked and that sort of thing. But the basically he said, this user said that my local Target is getting rid of their entire Xbox section. The electronics manager says they will no longer carry systems, games, or accessories. He said that all Targets in the Kansas City area are purging their Xbox stock as well. So this is either Kansas City, Missouri, or Kansas. I actually have not checked my local Target, but I never go there anyway, so I couldn't confirm or anything what it looks like from that standpoint. But let's see here. So Microsoft responded to this. Let me just find their response here. So they said Target and Walmart, among other retailers, remain committed partners for Xbox consoles, accessories, and games. And that's what they told Windows Central in a statement. Something else I want to point out. Destin Legary, who's not an Xbox insider or anything, but used to work for IGN, now is independent, says something that I thought was worth bringing up, and he said, I don't know if this is true or accurate, but I do know that I called my local Walmart and Target. Both stores haven't heard anything about pulling stock or discontinuing Xbox. They both also have Xbox in stock, so take that for what you will. Now, I do have some thoughts about all of this, particularly this photo that was included, although it looks like, well, I'll get into, I guess I should, let me back up. The photo that was included on the original tweet that was from an insider who was quoting an article from the gamer who was quoting the person from Reddit. The photo that they included was an old photo. It was a 2-year-old photo, based on the community note on X/Twitter that says that it actually is an old photo from 2023, potentially even older because of the fact that it sorry, I got a stupid pop-up on here. I don't care about any of this stuff. Leave me alone. Of course, now it disappeared on me. Give me 1 second. All right, so the original photograph is from 2023 or possibly older, as they still have Xbox 360 games on the shelves. And there's no context as to when this photo was taken or anything anyway. So we have no idea. There's no... I don't even know if this photo was something that the original poster actually... Sorry, my brain's not working. I don't believe that this photo was included with the original post from the Reddit post. From the original Reddit post. This is just a photo that was included by the insider who just decided to include it for visual purposes, I guess. But anyway, I do have some thoughts, so why don't you go ahead and start us off?
Yeah, so I was just trying to quickly go and see if I could get to that original post, and it does seem like the original Reddit post didn't have a picture, or at least unless it was removed. I'm not seeing it here. But so I'm not certain why that was added to that one Twitter X post that Destin was replying to. But yeah, so I'm very confused about this whole scenario. I don't know if this is just someone trying to make Xbox look worse than it already is. I don't know if this is just like some weird PS fanboying and trying to create a flame war, I don't know if maybe this particular sort of like or these particular Walmart Target stores are removing stock. Maybe they just happen to have low inventory for some reason or another. I don't know. I can't say, so I don't know what's true and what's not. Um, I think overall, though, I don't think I don't think Microsoft is trying to lie, especially if they're going to bring in Walmart and Target explicitly and say that they're continuing their partnership. You know, Walmart and Target could easily come back and say, "Whoa, that is not true. You said X, Y, and Z, and that we said we are going to cut ties with you." So, I mean, I feel like Microsoft doesn't necessarily have a reason to lie, or it would be stupid if they made a lie like that. So I don't think that I don't think there is a that they're pulling stock. It could be it's just like I said, it could be maybe in Kansas, or maybe these local stores, maybe they're low in supply, and that's why the shelves are empty. Maybe one or two stores are uh pulling stock for whatever reason. I don't know. I think as a whole, though, I think it's a big nothing burger. Um, and I mean, I have no allegiance or love for Microsoft or Xbox, but that doesn't mean I'm just going to just create some sort of bandwagon to hate on the company for no reason. I mean, I think Microsoft's doing enough damage with Game Pass as is right now. So I don't think I don't think this is something that is really credible. And I mean, like I said, they already said we're going to continue selling our games. And I mean, there was something that was mentioned in the article later on, I think, about possibly allocating less space for physical game media. Maybe that could be the case. I don't know. Maybe they're going to try to have have fewer physical games and maybe have more. I know they have some of these games like what are they called? Like the physical code cards or something like that, where you have a game on like a plastic card and it has the code in the back. Maybe they're gonna make more space for that. That could be a thing. They're just trying to rearrange stuff. That could be it. Like I said, I don't know, but I don't think it's what the original Reddit post is claiming. I think maybe one or two stores, maybe, but as a whole, nothing's really changing. But yeah, that's all I've got.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely one of those things where you really have to take it with a grain of salt. And I would say no matter what your perspective is on, Xbox good, Xbox bad, Xbox dead, Xbox not dead, you need to always take these things with a grain of salt. Look at things more closely and just kind of think through it. Think through the possibilities. If someone told you that PlayStation was this was happening with PlayStation or Nintendo, I mean, yeah, it would be harder to believe in general because of how well those consoles are doing, but at the same time, just if someone showed you a picture with a bunch of empty Switch or PlayStation shelves and that sort of thing, what would be your first instinct if you're a Nintendo or PlayStation fan? You would be skeptical about it. You would look at it and you'd say, there's something. I mean, there's any number of potential explanations for this. Now, I will say, I don't doubt that there are some locations where this is happening. Um, the Reddit poster, I think that there's, at least looking at some of his comments on other stuff, there's not really much of an indication that this is the kind of guy who's a PlayStation fanboy, or someone who's just necessarily trying to start a flame war. It may very well be that what he's saying is accurate, or it may just be that he's getting part of the story and not the whole story. Um, but furthermore, you also have to consider the reality that just because this is happening in one location doesn't mean it's happening everywhere. Yes, we know that Costco is getting rid of their Xbox stock, but Costco's not really a place where people go to buy video games. And so them doing that is like, it wasn't even that big of a deal. It's like they had to have a total of like 600 stores across the US, which isn't a small number, but compared to like Walmart that has hundreds of thousands of stores, I believe, or maybe it's not quite that much, but the point is that it's significantly more. It's like thousands upon thousands of stores, and a place like that would be much more surprising. Like Walmart stopped carrying it altogether, that would be really shocking. But with all these things, one Reddit post is not necessarily an indicator of a trend across the board. And you always have to take these kinds of claims with a grain of salt until you get some official confirmation from, whether it's from Walmart, Target, Microsoft. I mean, Microsoft, of course, is going to play the PR game regardless. So you have to take what they say with a grain of salt in a different sense. But just because you have a store or a couple of stores that say we're getting rid of our stock, and they're moving stuff away from that space to focus more on other things, whatever, that's not necessarily an indication that this is going to happen all across the board. And I'm sure that probably if someone's listening and they're like a PlayStation fanboy or whatever, and they're just like, oh, you're just defending Xbox. And it's like, no, that's not my point. I'm just saying, take all these things with a grain of salt. I mean, when I first looked at that photo from the Shinobi tweet, as soon as I looked at that, I didn't even notice the Xbox 360 stuff, which actually is pretty funny that there are even some there. But the thing that really stood out to me about it was, when was this photo taken? Because for all we know, this could be something that was taken on Black Friday. I mean, like after the stock had been cleared out. We have no idea when these pictures were taken, what's there. And the other thing that has to be considered in photos like this is that most of the time, I mean, for one, it doesn't show consoles in general there. I mean, it shows lots of empty slots for games. In fact, actually, the picture that I'm looking at here, most of the slots that they have are actually card slots, like where they hang up the cards with codes, whether it's for games or for like purchasing Game Pass, that sort of thing, gift cards, that kind of thing. And then there's a handful of games on the shelves, but there's just not that many shelves for the games in general. And I don't know if these are all the games that they were normally carrying, or if these are just a select, like their most popular games we're carrying, and then they have a separate section that has more games, or if these were just ones that were like more discounted games. There's a lot of questions that I would have to ask before a lot of questions that would have to be answered before I'd be convinced on these things. And I think that it's always good just to have a skeptical mind, to ask questions regardless of your position. I mean, regardless of what you think about some stuff like that. And this is just like, I don't know. It's so different. I don't know. You have to take these things with a grain of salt, regardless of what they are, especially when it's specifically going against a specific brand or whatever. Short of anything that you like might personally think, I don't know. I'm repeating myself. I'm not explaining things clearly enough. But the point, my point I'm trying to make is that these things are not always what they seem, and it's a good idea to take things with a grain of salt, regardless of who's presenting them and what they're presenting. When it's something that's like, oh, this is super dire, because there's too much that could be left out of context, or stuff that's just completely deceptive. So yeah, that's what I got.
Yeah. When you brought up a great points, and I was trying to like zoom in some more and see if I could tell or not. But unfortunately, it doesn't seem like I can zoom in too much in this picture. Yeah, I don't know how it is in some locations, and also, does this look like it's a... I thought this was a Walmart at first, but some of the signs in the background made me think it's a Target.
Yeah, that's definitely Target.
Yeah, so I know that at least a couple Targets near me, while they do have some games on display, like on a shelf, a lot of them are within like this cabinet
Hmm.
with like a thing where you have to like get an associate to go and
Right.
pull out a game for you and stuff. So like that's where the majority of games are. So like while there are games on shelves, that's not where the bulk of them are. So like if this Target is like that, then yeah, like there won't necessarily be a lot of games on the shelf. Like there might be some that are like older games that are on discount, stuff like that. Those games they'll have on the shelves, but for the bulk of the games, they'll be in the cabinets, like area. And so like that's probably another reason why the shelves are empty. Because like at least with, I mean, I haven't been to too many to Target in a long while, but at least with Walmart, um, the shelves generally can be empty on days, and it's not like even just like for Xbox. Like so when I went to go and look for games for like Switch and Wii U, sometimes the shelves are kind of bare bones. So if you really wanted to get a game, it would more so be in the cabinets, in the cabinets with the protective cases and stuff like that. So that's another thing about this picture is that it's not really telling the whole story. If this Target is just like how it is with the ones near me, where the games aren't all on the shelves and they're behind the glass case. So that's something that also I just wanted to bring up there.
Yeah, and I mean, like I'm just kind of looking closer at this picture a bit more because I'm just kind of curious about some of the stuff here. I don't see 360 games, so I'm not sure if people were correct about that. I think they might have meant Xbox One games because there are some Xbox One titles there. But
Mm.
like they have WWE 2K23, for example, displayed. Um, the only thing that I see that specifically says 24 on it is NHL 24 and FC 24, but I think those would have come out in. I'm not sure if those came out in 2024 or if they came out in 2023. I'll just give them the benefit of the doubt, say it was 2024, because if they were, um, if it was a recent picture, it would be 25 for those games. They wouldn't have the old ones, but these are like big twip away games. Um, I don't see anything here that was released this year. Everything here was released at least a year, if not 2 years ago. Um, yeah, I mean, like, it seems like the most recent game that they have displayed is Assassin's Creed Mirage, and I think that was 2023. And I mean, like, they have Hogwarts Legacy and, um, yeah, then the FC and NHL 24 games, but I don't even know when those came out. So yeah,
NHL 24 I see did come out in 23,
okay.
October 2023.
So yeah, this could very easily be a post Black Friday thing. But
Mm.
either way, I mean, like we said, looking at the shelves, there's not a whole lot of shelf space in general for those games. And I've kind of noticed that in general with Target is that their shelf space for everything has decreased by a lot. Like especially in the media section. I mean, like especially when I look at like movies and that sort of thing, I've checked there, and I feel like to some degree it might have been the case with Switch games too, but those might be behind a locked case. Honestly, I don't remember because I just don't go to Target often. So, but regardless, you know, it's one of those things where maybe some of it is true, but there's no way to be absolutely certain because we don't have enough information. And I think it's better to just take any of these claims with a grain of salt. Um, I'll definitely be curious. Like maybe the next time I go to Walmart, I'll try to take a look and see what their Xbox stock looks like compared to PlayStation and Nintendo. I know that the PlayStation and Nintendo aisles are typically more full. Or I should say, from my recollection, but I typically don't even look at the Xbox ones. I typically don't really look at the PlayStation. Sometimes I'll go through the Switch one, but it's like one side you have games, which is like about half good games and half shovelware, and then on the other side it's like consoles and controllers. Is usually what I see, but I don't pay enough attention to the Xbox ones to where I could say one way or the other. And since I don't go to Target, it's hard for me to say that. I will say this is just a random side note, but because I see it in the picture, I want one of those Xbox mini fridges because I just think it's hilarious. and because I do have enough like drinks occasionally to where it would be nice to have a little mini fridge under my desk, and of course I just think the Xbox mini fridge is funny. So, but yeah, that's all I got. All right, got one more topic for tonight. You want to talk about this report from Circana about game buying habits?
Sure thing. So, apparently, people aren't buying games that much. Apparently, so there was a survey done by research company Circana, and this was for the third quarter 2025 future of video game survey, and this was only for players in the U.S. And according to the survey, 18% of players buy a new game about once every 6 months, while 12% of gamers only buy one game or buy one about once a year. And the survey found that 33% of the players buy a new game less often than once per year, and that brings a combined a total of 63% of players who buy two games or fewer every year. And then it says on the other end of the scale, 22% of the players buy a new game around once every 3 months, with 10% saying they buy one roughly every month. Just 4% said they buy more than one game a month. And yeah, and it also says that 14% of players who buy one game or more per month are mainly responsible for the continued trajectory of full price games. 14%. Now, one thing that wasn't stated in the article, and I don't think it was really stated in, or at least it was mentioned in the survey, is well, it did say U.S. players, didn't say necessarily the platforms. So that's something that, well, I'll kind of discuss that in my, when I'm talking more in depth about this. But so it didn't really say too much that I see here, but yeah. What are your thoughts on this? I feel like maybe we're probably in the minority of things, but so tell me your thoughts on this finding.
Well, this is not the first time we've gotten this type of information from Matt Pescatella. When he did the interview with Kind of Funny, I think that was earlier this year. I think it was like early this year he did that. He basically said that it's like a very low percentage of people who actually buy more than a game per month and buy more than 3 to 4 games a year, which it's kind of funny. He said that he pointed out that while if the numbers seem unusual, it's likely because anyone who follows him already falls into that 14% bracket of players who buy a game or more per month. And so it's just, we're so insulated in our bubble of being people who are enthusiasts and buy a lot of games, that for us it might seem kind of hard to believe. But at the same time, for me, it wasn't overly difficult to believe because of the fact that I also recognize, I guess I should say, I didn't realize how, before his interview with Kind of Funny, I didn't realize how few people actually bought that many games. But at the same time, it also doesn't entirely surprise me because even though, like, you and I, we buy a lot of games, most of the games we buy are cheap. We're not typically buying full price games. And so if we who buy lots of games are mostly buying games that are new to us and less actual new games, or spending considerably less than people are paying on consoles a lot of times, the idea that there's a very, very small minority of people who buy more than 1 or 2 games a year and also who buy full price games or thereabouts, that's even less surprising from that standpoint. I don't know, it's one of those things, like, in some ways it's kind of like And in other ways, it's duh. It's huh or it's duh. It's just kind of it's like I followed enough of this stuff, particularly after he did the interview, and I've watched like a lot of videos talking about the stuff that he talked about. Particularly like VG Fight School has covered his stuff a lot because he's been trying to point out, especially to PlayStation fanboys, um, that the real that the PlayStation exclusives and just exclusives in general are not as important as they used to be because people don't buy that many games anymore, and there's just so much competition. And then of course you have the free to play titles that eat up the majority of people's time. I mean, most people who play video games, they play free to play titles more than they play anything else. Obviously there are those of us who are enthusiasts and we buy a lot of other games. We don't play the free to play, or if we do, it's very little. But we don't we're in the minority, in the extreme minority. I would say probably from a PC, from the standpoint of people who are playing on PC, we're probably less in the minority, but we're still very much in the minority. Because the other thing about Circana, I'm not sure how much of this actually has anything to do with digital games versus physical games. I mean, like, obviously in terms of physical games, it's a whole different story. But it's still just kind of interesting. I mean, it seems like Circana has to be covering at least some stuff with digital games, not necessarily that they're getting all the information. Because I'm sure just a lot of these companies, especially Nintendo and Xbox, are not sharing that information as much. And PlayStation, depending on the game, it's hard to say how much they're actually sharing that information. But regardless of any of that, it's very interesting just to see this massive disparity. I mean, the fact that it's 4% that buy more than one game a month, that's absurdly low compared to, the total number. And also keeping in mind that this is just a sample size. This isn't everyone, but this is still, it's a sample size across a bunch of different places and so on and so forth. I don't know exactly how many people that they asked, but it's still, is notable, the fact that they have such a difference here. And I mean, of course, if you look at the sales charts anyway, it's very obvious that the top selling games, the games that make the most revenue, are the free to play games, and like the Call of Duties and GTA and stuff like that, versus all of the exclusives and that sort of thing, which do obviously make it high on the charts, at least in their initial month, and some of them continue to sell well longer than others. Like Mario Kart 8 Deluxe was on the charts forever. Grand Theft Auto 5 has been on the charts basically since 2013. And until Grand Theft Auto 6 comes out, I think GTA 5 is going to stay on the charts. But yeah, oh, this whole thing is crazy. And I love being in the spot where you and I are, where we play on because we play on PC. Even though we do buy a lot of games, so many of our games are so cheap because of the fact that we're buying games either long after they've come out, or games that are just cheaper in general. We get a lot of free games through like GOG and occasionally stuff through Steam. It's just there's so much difference there. And of course, we aren't in the console space, at least. Well, you're not in the console space really at all anymore. I'm barely still in the console space, even though I have the Switch 2, just because I almost never play it anymore. And until I decide that I really am ready to play one of the particular games on there, I don't know how much I'll actually play it. But anyway, that's all I have to say.
You brought up something which I didn't even think about, which I think is a very good point, and that is we don't know about if physical was a factor or not. Because I mean, I definitely think if physical is a factor, yeah, I feel like the numbers would decrease. Because I can't remember what I've heard, or at least what the last numbers I heard, but I believe that so far sales of games are about 60 digital, 40 physical. I could be wrong, but I thought it was like something like that. All I know is that digital on console is definitely gaining ground. I mean, of course, it's pretty much virtually all digital on PC, unless you have like a handful of games that somehow get some type of physical release, but otherwise it's all digital on PC. But on console, yeah, like digital's definitely gaining ground. But what I was primarily thinking about though, and this is something that which I was sort of referring to earlier, is about the fact that I don't know what markets are being included if mobile is a factor in this as well, because mobile is probably the only thing. In fact, as far as I can remember, it is the largest gaming market out of all of the markets, just because of the fact that it does have that entire free-to-play mentality. Virtually most people have a cell phone, and so they definitely have access to having those games. And you're gonna have people who have their Candy Crushes, people who have their I guess their Clash of Clans, their mobile versions of like main computer games, or just like there are so many different things. There are so many different there's so many different also clones of games as well. I mean, like,
Yeah.
you can make a carbon copy of whatever trending game there is on, like the Google Play Store or the iOS shop, and for essentially pennies, you can make a copy of that and add in in-app transactions and make a good deal of money on that. And that's something that a lot of companies are investing in. That's why we've seen companies like Activision, we've seen Sony do it, we've seen Microsoft do it, we've seen, to a lesser extent, Nintendo try to get into that market as well, because they see that there are people who have cell phones. Majority of people have cell phones, and so why not make a game where, have a cheap game or have a free-to-play game, and we'll have ads in there, or we'll have in-game app purchases, and we'll make money that way, and it's a pretty steady revenue stream there. So I feel like that could definitely be a factor as to people who say they're gamers or they play games to some degree, because even like non-gamers, if they say, hey, do you play games, it's like, oh yeah, I play this game app on my phone, and like that would technically count as gaming. And so because of that, then it would say, okay, yeah. And so like, how often do you buy a game? I'm like, I don't really buy a game, or I never buy a game. I just download what's on the app store, and that would definitely skew numbers in heavily in that fashion. So I think that definitely plays a role in that. I do think also the likes of Game Pass definitely would have an impact on this as well, even if we were trying to push out mobile as much as possible. I think having those subscription services do have an impact on how often people buy new games, because if you're someone who's on Xbox and say, I don't need to go ahead and buy the game, or don't have to worry about it because I've got Game Pass, I'll play it on launch when it releases, and say like, yeah, I'm not gonna do that. Or if you're on PSN and you're gonna say, well, I mean, PSN doesn't really have anything for certain, I mean, maybe for PlayStation games. So you say, hey, I've got PSN, I'll just play whatever's coming on there, and save some money on that. And I mean, saving money as far as like, you don't have to pay for it up front, but if the game leaves, then you don't have it anymore.
Right.
So if you're using a subscription service, then I feel like that definitely would impact people who buy games. Yeah, I mean, also, are people buying games used? That would, I don't know if that would count as far as what they're trying to what they're trying to survey here. If they're only mentioning new games, then I feel like that definitely could impact it, because some people might, if they are only counting new games, then yeah, used games, a lot of people would buy used games. I mean, I primarily bought used games back in the day. Like, I did it heavily for the GameCube, I did it heavily for the Wii U. not really too much on the Switch, but I got a few used Switch games, so
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to save money, so I bought used.
Yeah.
So like if people are buying used games, that could definitely have an impact on the survey results. But it is definitely interesting. I mean, it's interesting. I'm not, again, like you, I'm not too surprised about the fact that people who buy games are quite lower than someone might expect.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, this is definitely interesting to see though. And we are in that very small minority, that's 4%.
Yeah.
Of gamers. So,
Yeah.
I guess like they're gonna study us and say, what happens if we add a game to your library? What chemical reaction occurs in your brain when that happens? Why do you get these games?
Yep. So I looked at a bit more at the thread from Matt Piscatella on Blue Sky, and his some questions people asked and his responses, and so some things that he clarified. For one, is that this can't this is it does not count into used games. No used or resold games. So if you bought it used, if you bought it from, I mean, well, I guess used and resold, it's the same thing, but used games are not counted. This is counting new games across all platforms, which includes PC and mobile. This was not something this isn't tracking specific games. I mean, this isn't talking about sales so much. It's that people were surveyed who are active players, ages 13 and older, and he said the sample size was about 2.5 thousand people. So it's not a huge sample size, but I mean, it's still just basically looking at, okay, all these people are active on their gaming platforms, and because they're active, we're going to survey them, ask them how many new games do they purchase, and that sort of thing. So, yeah, but it's going across a bunch of different platforms. It's not just not just consoles or just PC or anything else. So, yeah, it's very interesting to see that aspect, but yeah, so
Well, I'm sorry. One thing I just thought about is the fact that, and we've mentioned this before, is the fact that we do have this, I guess, disconnection with the younger generation. The younger generation who leans to playing like one type of game, or they play a game that is constant. So they might play something like, or they might be solely dedicated on like playing Minecraft, or they might be solely dedicated on like Roblox or something like that, and they're focused only on one game because it's technically free, or it's like something cheap and they can constantly play the game. Or they might just say, we're gonna focus only on Call of Duty and only do that. And so I think that's another difference, as opposed to like, I guess, our generation of gamers who would constantly get different games when we could.
Yeah, I mean, it's been interesting watching the way my kids play games, because I mean, obviously they've grown up watching me play games since they were babies. There multiple times I would be holding one of them while playing a game. I remember, and I even have a video of it, when I was playing Xenoblade Chronicles X on the Wii U, and playing that on the TV, and my oldest son was a newborn. I mean, he was basically a month old, because it came out a month before, or a month after he was born, a little over a month after he was born. And he's just laying on the couch, wiggling his arms and legs, and you hear the music from Xenoblade playing in the background, and it's just, my kids have always grown up with this stuff. I actually have a picture that I took that was a funny picture. You'll have to remind me, and I'll send it to you later. But with my oldest as well, I took a picture of him with my PS4 controller and the setup that I had for playing Destiny, where I had my headphones plugged in and my little lapel mic attached so that I could do that. And I have a picture of him with those things on, taking out noobs and all that stuff. But Yeah, but anyway, going back to the way my kids play games and the type of games they play. I mean, obviously they love playing Minecraft. They've been getting really into Animal Crossing, largely because they watch my wife play it all the time, and because Animal Crossing is fun. I like Animal Crossing too. I just haven't really played it since 2020. Um, but they'll play stuff like that. But then they'll also play other stuff like I think all three of them are working on Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart right now, which of course, luckily for them, since I upgraded that PC, it runs a lot better. Um, and what was another game that they were playing recently? Something else on Steam. Gosh, it's gonna bother me if I can't remember what it is, but oh yeah, we got Goat Simulator 3 for them because my nephews had recommended it because it has multiplayer, and especially my oldest and my youngest both just find it hilarious, and it is ridiculous. Like the intro is the intro is really funny because you start off as a goat riding in a cart. Oh, you're awake, like in Skyrim. and it just has, oh man, it's very funny. But yeah, it's and then they'll play the Switch sometimes, and they'll occasionally play their 2DSs. I think my daughter plays her 2DS the most of the three of them, and my oldest is getting Mario Maker for 3DS for his birthday, which is in about a little under 3 weeks. And I know he's been wanting that for a while, so I know he'll enjoy that a lot because he loves the creative stuff. But like I don't know what my kids' gaming habits are going to be like as they get older. I mean, I think the fact that they watched me play so many different games will encourage them to try out a lot of different stuff. But obviously they love Minecraft. They play it a ton. It doesn't appeal to me at all. But I also have been gaming since the early 90s, and the even my oldest son, I think he probably started gaming when he was about 3 or 4. No, he wasn't that old. Or I think he was, yeah, he may have been 4. I think he was 4 when we got the 2DSs for the boys. So something like that. 4 or 5. I can't remember. I guess maybe it was when he was 5. I want to say it was 2020 that I got those for them for Christmas. But anyway, so yeah, they've just grown up with the stuff, and it's going to be interesting to see what their gaming habits look like as they get older and how much they follow my example versus just getting into certain things and so on and so forth. But I mean, the good thing is that a lot of the games that they're wanting to play are games that I just already own on Steam and that sort of thing, and there's lots of ability for them to just enjoy games from that standpoint, and they'll probably never run out of games to play. So yeah, anyway, that was quite the tangent. All right, any other thoughts?
No, sir.
All right, well, let's get into our recommendations and dissuasions. Why don't you start us off?
All right. So a few things for me. First one is going to be breakfast biscuit bombs. Those definitely were very good. And if you want this sort of TLDR recipe, it's really just getting, your whatever brand of biscuits doughs from the store, flatten those and then make some scrambled eggs. If you want to make some sausage, do that. Bacon, add that in. If you want to add some onions, peppers, stuff like that, prepare that too. Just put that one there, put some cheese in there, roll it up, and then just cook it. And if add a little bit of garlic butter on there, tastes great, and I definitely recommend it. But I especially want to recommend that you, depending on how many toppings you add, flatten the biscuit as much as possible before you add the fillings in, so that way it's a whole lot easier. You don't have to worry about the biscuit opening up after you try to close everything in. So definitely do that. Next recommendation is for Halls of Torment, especially if you want to get the harder achievements. Beast Huntress with the ring blades is so broken that it's ridiculous. So just use her, use those 2 rings. Use the crit chance ring and the crit damage ring. Buff the ring blades. That's it. That's really all you need to do. You can get through the final area, beat that easily. You can even beat that within the 9-minute challenge. Also, for just getting the 500 million damage achievements for actually all of the areas. That one build is going to do it every single time, and you don't even have to worry about like taking any damage because the enemies will die before they can even get close to touching you. So, yeah, just use that build, and that's awesome. Last recommendation is going to be for the Castlevania collection, Domino's collection. To enable full screen on desktop, Alt-Enter is the way to do it. You don't have to worry about that on the Steam Deck. It automatically is like full screen, but for some reason it's not like that on the desktop. So just do that and you'll get full screen. And if you're trying to figure out how to exit the game, that's another thing that Konami messed up. Keep backing up until you get to the title screen, not the main menu, but the actual title screen, and hit B, and then it'll give you an option to close the game. I don't know why they did that, but that's how you exit the game as well. But yeah, those are all my recommendations.
Nice. Yeah, those biscuit bomb things sound really good. I think what I would want to do with it is probably either, what I would probably do is I would probably do eggs with both homemade bacon and homemade sausage and homemade queso, cheese sauce. Mix all those together and then stuff it like that. That would probably be really good. Maybe add some sauteed bell peppers and onions would be yummy too. But yeah, I'm gonna have to try that sometime for sure, because that sounds great. Or even be good with like sausage gravy and that stuff. Just do sausage gravy and but at that point it's like you might as well just make biscuits and gravy. I don't know. Anyway, you made me hungry now. Now I want to eat that. But anyway, so yeah, good stuff. And I definitely I have to figure out when I want to play Castlevania, because it's like I really do, but I think at minimum I need to finish up Yuka Replay and maybe also play the rest of Hellblade 2, because I mean I know it's not a long game. I'll probably end up playing some of it on my stream, but I don't know yet. I still haven't figured out. There's always, it's like, even with 24 hours to play video games, I'm always struggling on which games I should play because I want to play everything. It's like I have all this time. Now I just need to decide what I actually want to play. Anyway, my recommendations. First of all, I'm going to recommend playing Yuka Replay. Whether you've played the original Yooka-Laylee or not, Yuka Replay is just 3D platforming bliss. It is so good. I've been having such a great time with it, and it's very likely I will have it done before we talk next. Before we record next week's episode anyway. I'd say it's highly likely that I will finish it before then, unless something comes up. So, having a great time with that. But my second recommendation related to that is turn off VSync if you're playing on PC, because that will make your performance significantly better. It makes a massive difference, and the game thankfully doesn't seem to have any screen tearing issues, which is fantastic. It really helps a lot, because usually turning off VSync means you get screen tearing, and I haven't had that problem at all. So it might be different on a 60 hertz monitor, but I would think probably, if you have a decent refresh rate, it should be fine. And one of my friends, he said he has a 4K 60 monitor, and he hasn't had a chance to check out the game yet, but he did at least download the demo, and I'll definitely have to ask him after he tries it out whether turning off VSync had any negative aspects, versus having it turned on. So, but yeah, that's what I have for recommendations. So dissuasions.
My dissuasion is going to be, if you are interested in Dusk Fade, and especially if you want to play the game on the Steam Deck, do not get it at launch as of right now. The performance on the Steam Deck is just poor, all things considered. I mean, you can get it to run at 60, but it's just very inconsistent. And I mean, the frame rate is also inconsistent on desktop as well, I would say, but just really, it's worse on the Steam Deck. And considering the fact that it can drop as low as 20 frames per second, it's just not worth it. It could be fixed, it could be improved later on, but as of right now, I mean, considering the fact that, again, I don't know if just an Unreal Engine 5 thing, but considering that if you mess with things, you can get Expedition 33 running at 40 on the Steam Deck, and you can also get Palworld running at 40. I don't know why this game struggles so much to do something consistent. So just don't get it yet. Wait until later to get it. And also, I would just say, I guess this is more like a recommendation, but try the demo and see how it works for you. But yeah, that's my dissuasion.
All right. Well, my dissuasion is don't buy MSG with salt added. If you're gonna buy MSG, just get the regular, just get it on its own, and then you can add the salt independently. Either that or just get some kind of bouillon, because the bouillon usually is going to have MSG as part of it, and that's a lot easier to get the balance right. But if you're like me and you're used to using regular MSG that doesn't have any salt added, getting the stuff with salt, it doesn't work nearly as well, because usually I'll have more MSG than I will salt, because it adds a different flavor without making it salty, and then you can have the salt separate. But anyway, yeah, so don't buy the MSG that has salt added to it. All right, well, where can people find you?
They can find me on my channel, I am Xeracon, that's IAMXERACON, so youtube.com/@IamXeracon. Still working on the Expedition 33 review. I've been getting started with the writing and getting everything laid out on that end. Just gotta do the recording and then get everything edited and then get that out. After that, though, like I said earlier, I have a special project that will be going up. Just gotta figure out when I want to get all that recorded. It's just a fun little thing that I felt some inspiration from stuff I had seen before, which I'll mention later on. But yeah, it's just a nice little thing I wanted to do, and it was a nice little challenge, I think. And then I have my other channel, Justin's Bible Blog. That's at Justin's Bible Blog. Put out a video Saturday, I think. Just sharing sort of a summary of a message that I heard from my relative's funeral that I thought would be a little encouragement for people in the Christian walk. Not certain what the next video will be, but as I read my Bible, something will stick out to me, and I'll address it in a future video.
Sounds good. Yeah, I didn't see your video, but I'll have to look it up. Of course, I haven't been watching a whole lot of stuff. Just been a little busier. But as far as where you can find me, I have my YouTube gaming channel at the Frozen Gamer 87. Haven't put out any new videos lately, at least not since the Why I Love PC Gaming video. I have a couple that are in the works. I just haven't had time to get around to them, and it's a good thing that I ended up instead using my Saturday to work on getting the stream stuff set up, because if I had waited until this coming weekend, I probably would not have gotten it done in time. So what I do have coming up, though, is next Friday, October 24th, beginning at 9 a.m. Central Time, I'm going to be doing my 4th annual 24-hour stream to raise money for the Stack Up charity. And yeah, it's a great charity. I put a post up on it on my YouTube channel, giving all of the gist of what it is that they do. But basically, it's a charity that provides services to veterans, both active and retired military service members, giving them an outlet to help deal with the difficulties of both being in active duty and also going back to civilian life and everything else that goes along with that. Like I said, there's a whole bunch of details. I'll be trying to cover it more thoroughly throughout the stream compared to what I have done in the past, just because I have some talking points that are going to be more helpful, and I want to try to make sure I covered that thoroughly, because it is really a great charity, and I'm glad to be able to support them in this way, even if my donations are much smaller than a lot of people. But it's still something that I like to do, because I do believe in this charity. So beyond that, there is, of course, the YouTube channel for the podcast, which is YouTube at the Orange Box Podcast. It's also on Rumble, which isn't a custom URL, but you can find it there without a problem. Just search for the Orange Box Podcast. The video version of the podcast goes live every Friday at 7 a.m. Central Time, barring any technical issues. And then there's also the audio-only version of the podcast, which goes live on every major audio podcast platform, including Apple Podcasts, YouTube Music, Spotify, Deezer, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, and some other stuff that I have forgotten to mention, I'm sure. But all of them, it goes live every Friday at 12 a.m. Central Time. Once again, barring any technical issues. And beyond that, I do have a YouTube cooking channel, Not Authentic But Delicious. That's YouTube at NABD Cooking. That one has not had anything new in quite a while, but there are somewhere between 30 and 40 recipes up on the channel, and hopefully eventually I'll start getting back into filming and putting up recipes. It's just time is more of a I guess I should just say it just hasn't been priority. So this is one of those things that it will probably, when I start getting back into it, I'll probably start doing it consistently again, but it just hasn't been high on my priority list, so I haven't done anything with it for quite a while. But otherwise, if you want to contact us, you can send us an email to the orangeboxpodcast@gmail.com. You can also write us on X/Twitter at the orangeboxpod. We're not active there, but if you write us, we will be sure to get back to you and or read your comment or question on the show. But even if you never contact us, it's really not a problem. Obviously, we're still going to talk for 2.5 hours or more every single week, because this is how we catch up from week to week. This is a great outlet for talking about video games and video game news. And yeah, it's been a good time. We've been going now for just over 2 years and still going strong. It's funny that we met through YouTube. Me commenting on one of your videos, and then you watched my first 24-hour stream, or parts of it at least, and then we just eventually connected and started the podcast. So good stuff. But that is everything. So, last chance, any final thoughts?
No, sir.
Well, I am the Frozen Gamer 87. That is I am Zerocon. We are the Orange Box Podcast. And until next time, fill yourself up with MSG, but also don't stay salty. Orange Box Podcast, out.